What happens when the man who built a buffet empire from scratch sees one of his own drop to the floor and no one helps him up? Owen Mitchell stood in the back of the delivery truck, adjusting the scratchy name tag that read Ray. The fake beard itched, and the brown contact lenses were drying out his eyes. He didn't love going undercover, but some things couldn't be seen from a boardroom. He'd built the buffet chain from the ground up, 6 locations across the Midwest, each bringing in steady business. But he was starting to get the feeling something was off. Not from customer complaints, those were rare. It was the numbers. Labor costs were oddly low at one location, the 5th store he'd opened in a suburb outside Kansas City. Too low. And turnover was high. His executive assistant had flagged it. Might be a manager cutting hours to boost their own bonus, she'd said, so Owen decided to go in himself. Disguised as a new trainee named Ray, he was placed at the questionable location for a full week. The store manager had never met him, none of the frontline staff had. It was a corporate chain, and Owen kept a low profile when visiting stores, always in a suit, never behind the counter. This time he'd be on the line. The manager, a sharp-voiced man named Carl, barely looked up when Owen walked in. "You're the new guy. Good. We're behind already. Get an apron and follow Maribel." Maribel Ortega, a short woman in her 30s with a bright smile and tired eyes, handed him a pair of gloves and led him to the prep station. "You'll be chopping veggies for the salad bar," she said. "Fast hands, but careful hands." "Got it, Ray?" "Got it," Owen said. By noon, the kitchen was boiling. Literally and figuratively. The steam from the mashed potato station mixed with the loud clangs of trays, the barked orders from Carl, and the low grumbles of line workers. Owen noticed the pace was brutal, no breaks, no water bottles in sight, and Carl yelling so loud it made the younger workers flinch. "Move faster, Jesus. We're not a daycare," Carl shouted at one kid who couldn't have been older than 19. Owen kept his head down, absorbing everything. He saw Maribel step in quietly, fixing mistakes others made without calling them out, covering for the overwhelmed kid and doing her job without pause. On day 3, things got worse. They were short 2 dishwashers and 1 line cook. Carl muttered something about cutting hours to keep labor lean. The meaning was clear: he'd scheduled fewer staff than needed to keep the books looking good. That afternoon, Owen was on the hot food line next to a tall, wiry guy named Dante. He looked no older than 22. Quiet, polite, and clearly exhausted. They'd been working 5 hours straight without a break. Owen noticed Dante's hands trembling as he tried to refill the mac and cheese tray. "You good?" Owen asked quietly. Dante nodded, but he was pale. A minute later, while walking back from the cooler, Dante collapsed, his knees buckled, and he hit the tile hard. The whole room froze. Owen dropped the ladle and rushed to him. "Hey, Dante, can you hear me?" Carl stormed over. "What's this now? Get him up." Owen stared at him. "He just collapsed." Carl didn't blink. "Then he needs to stand back up. We've got a line of customers out the door." Owen's jaw clenched. "Are you serious?" Carl pointed. "You, Ray, get him up. Then get back in position." "We don't have time for drama." Dante groaned on the floor, trying to push himself up. Owen knelt beside him. "Don't move, man, just breathe." Maribel rushed over with a wet towel. "He's dehydrated. I told Carl he needed a break 2 hours ago." Owen helped press the towel to Dante's neck. "Call an ambulance," Carl scoffed. "For a fainting spell, we don't need a lawsuit." That was it. Owen stood up slowly, heart pounding. He didn't say anything yet. Not here, not yet. Instead, he turned to Maribel. "Can you stay with him? I'll call." She nodded, eyes wide. Owen stepped outside and dialed emergency. As sirens approached minutes later, Carl stood with arms crossed, still grumbling about delays, watching Dante being loaded into the ambulance. Owen knew one thing: he wasn't just going to fix this. He was going to burn it down and rebuild it right. The waiting room at the urgent care center was quiet, just the low hum of a vending machine and muffled voices from behind the triage curtain. Owen sat stiffly in a plastic chair, still wearing the grease-stained kitchen pants and sweat-dampened t-shirt. His fake beard was stuffed in his pocket. He'd ripped it off during the ambulance ride, no longer willing to play dress-up. Dante's mother had arrived 10 minutes ago. Her eyes were red, her voice steady with the kind of strength only necessity forged. Owen had introduced himself as a corporate field representative half-truth, enough to explain his presence without blowing the whole thing open. Yet, he stayed long enough to hear the doctor say it was heat exhaustion, borderline heat stroke. Dante had been working multiple shifts back-to-back 78 hours over the last 2 weeks. No paid time off, no overtime pay, just barely enough money to help his mom cover rent. Owen left the clinic shaken. Not surprised, just angry. The next morning, he was back in the kitchen, early enough to catch the opening team. Carl wasn't in yet. That gave Owen a moment of quiet with the crew, what was left of them. 2 called out after yesterday. Not unusual, Marable said quietly while cracking eggs into a steel bowl. They burn out fast here, some don't even last the week. Is that why you're covering salad and hot bar now? Owen asked. She nodded, eyes on her hands. I've done every station in this place. Started 5 years ago, got passed up for a supervisor role twice. Carl said I'm too friendly with the team. Owen kept his face neutral. Doesn't seem like a bad thing. Not if you think people matter, she said with a shrug. But that's not what he's looking for. He wants fast and quiet. And he clocks every second if you need a breather. Later that morning, Carl stormed in, visibly annoyed. He didn't acknowledge the team, just barked, "Morning meeting in 5, let's go." The staff gathered near the storage shelves. Carl leaned back on a crate of soda syrup. "Listen up," he said. "No excuses today. We're short, yeah, but customers don't care. So move fast, keep your heads down, and don't waste my time with complaints. Anyone slacking gets their hours cut. Understood?" No one spoke. Carl's eyes zeroed in on Owen. "You, Ray, you dropped the ball yesterday. You left your station, walked out during lunch rush." "I called the ambulance," Owen said calmly. Carl narrowed his eyes. "That wasn't your job, you're a trainee. Your job is to follow direction, not play hero." Owen didn't respond. He didn't need to. The rest of the staff looked between them, tension thick in the air. Carl clapped his hands once. "Clock in. Let's move." By mid-morning, the problems were impossible to ignore. The dish pit was backed up. One of the fryers was down, and Carl refused to call maintenance, too expensive unless it's fully broken. He told Owen, who had been assigned to clean out the grease trap under it. Owen asked why the filters hadn't been changed, and the answer came from a kid named Kelsey who was barely tall enough to reach the prep counter. "Carl says they're fine as long as they're not on fire." Owen stared at her. "You're 17. 16. I work weekends and 2 nights a week after school," he nodded slowly. "Is there another adult here when you're on shift?" She hesitated. "Sometimes, but not always." Owen walked straight to the back, past the storage room, and found the employee schedule printed on a clipboard. There it was, Kelsey scheduled Monday and Thursday nights, closing shift with no other adults listed after 8 p.m. That was illegal. Flat out. He was still staring at the schedule when Carl walked in behind him. "What are you doing in my office?" Carl asked, voice sharp. "I thought this was a storage room. This is private. You don't go through my paperwork." Owen turned slightly. "You're scheduling a minor to close alone," Carl scoffed. "She's mature for her age, and I'm usually nearby." "That's not what the schedule says." Carl took a step closer. "You're a trainee. You don't get to question how I run things." Owen folded the schedule and tucked it into his pocket. "I'm not just a trainee." Carl's face twisted. "What's that supposed to mean? You'll find out soon enough." Owen left the room. Later that day, a corporate inspector someone Owen had quietly called in walked through the front doors without warning. Clipboard in hand, badge on his belt. Carl's expression shifted instantly, all fake charm and forced smiles. "Welcome," he said. "Didn't know you were coming today." "That's the point," the inspector replied. "We're conducting a compliance audit." Carl followed him around the dining area, throwing nervous glances toward the kitchen. Owen stayed on the line, watching the rest of the team. Marable didn't smile. She didn't relax. She just moved quietly, clearing trays, helping a new cashier with the register when it jammed. By the time the inspector reached the back, Carl's forehead was glistening. "You've got an expired first aid kit," the inspector said. "And no posted schedule for breaks. We stagger them," Carl said quickly. "Nothing formal. And your temperature logs for the walk-in fridge," Carl blinked. "We keep them digitally. They're not in the system. I'll have to check with," the inspector cut him off. "You'll need to provide documentation within 24 hours. Owen stepped forward. "I've been on shift for 4 days. No breaks, no logs, and no working thermometer in the cooler." Carl's expression broke. "Who the hell do you think you are?" Owen took off his hat. "Owen Mitchell, founder. CEO." The room went silent. Carl looked like he'd been punched in the throat. "You're joking." Owen stepped closer. "You ordered an unconscious employee back to work. You scheduled a 16-year-old to close a loan. You ignored maintenance issues, falsified labor logs, and created a hostile environment I wouldn't wish on my worst competitor." Carl opened his mouth, but Owen held up a hand. "You're done. Hand over your keys." "Now," Carl hesitated. "You can't fire me on the spot. I just did." Carl's hands shook as he reached into his pocket. He dropped the ring of keys on the prep table and stormed out the back door without another word. The inspector looked at Owen. "Want me to finish the audit?" "Yes, thoroughly. I want a full report." The rest of the shift moved like a fog had lifted. Staff stayed quiet, unsure what to make of the reveal. Owen didn't push, he stayed on the line, finishing his shift like everyone else. After close, with the dining area empty and chairs flipped, he gathered the staff. "I owe all of you an apology," he said. "This shouldn't have gone on as long as it did. I trusted the wrong people to run this place, and that's on me." No one spoke. "I saw a lot these past few days. I saw people covering for each other, working double duty, showing up even when they weren't treated right. That shouldn't be the norm. That's not the company I built." Marable crossed her arms. "What happens now? We're bringing in a temporary GM, someone I trust, but long-term. That depends on you. I want internal promotions, people who have earned it." He looked at her directly. "You interested in running this place?" She blinked. "You serious?" "I don't ask rhetorical questions." She nodded slowly, almost afraid to believe it. Then, "Yes, good," Owen said. "Let's make it right." He walked out into the night, the air cooler than it had been all week. The sign above the door still glowed yellow and red, the same as always. But inside, everything had changed. The following morning, Owen arrived before the sun came up. The parking lot was empty except for Marable's sedan and a delivery truck idling near the back entrance. Steam curled from the truck's exhaust, lit by the glow of the kitchen's side light. He keyed in through the employee entrance. Carl's access code had already been disabled and made his way through the prep room, where Marable was unloading boxes of produce by herself. "You're here early," Owen said, setting down his bag. She didn't look up right away, just gripped the edge of a crate and exhaled through her nose. Truck came late again, no one else scheduled till 6. He stepped beside her and picked up a box of lettuce. "Then I guess we're both early." They worked in silence for a while, the only sound the rustle of cardboard and the hum of the cooler. When the line cook arrived 20 minutes later, an older man named Fred, who barely spoke and had worked there longer than anyone, Owen greeted him and asked if he'd be willing to train a new hire later in the week. Fred nodded once and went straight to unpacking. By mid-morning, the temporary general manager arrived. Her name was Nikki Tran. Late 30s, sharp eyes, quiet presence. She'd run the flagship store downtown for 5 years and had personally trained 3 other managers. Owen trusted her judgment more than most. He met her outside the walk-in fridge. "Place worse than I thought?" she asked without emotion. He nodded. "You'll see it for yourself." She glanced around at the team, already moving through opening prep. "Anyone I need to watch closely?" "Not anymore," Owen said, "but they're tired. They've been holding this place together with duct tape and hope." Nikki cracked her knuckles. "Then we keep it standing while we rebuild, fast and quiet." He stepped back, letting her take the floor. She didn't call a meeting. She moved through the station checklist, reviewed schedules, and asked questions without raising her voice. When she noticed that the dish pit was still backed up from the day before, she didn't ask who was responsible. She grabbed gloves and started clearing it herself. That set the tone quickly. Owen stayed out of her way, watching how the team responded. He noticed Maribel stop, glancing over her shoulder. Fred offered to stay an hour later without being asked. Even Kelsey, who had returned for her evening shift, showed up 15 minutes early and hovered near Nikki as if waiting for instruction. At the end of the day, Owen pulled Nikki aside into the small back office. "What do you think so far?" he asked. She leaned against the filing cabinet and folded her arms. "The team's strong. They've just been led wrong. You can feel it when someone's used to working scared." He nodded. "I'm going to push for Maribel to take this store." "You good with training her up? She already leads half the shift without the title," Nikki said. "She just needs someone to back her when it counts." Owen tapped his fingers on the edge of the desk. "Then I'm leaving it to you." He left the next morning, but not without speaking to the team first. He gathered them in the break room before opening hours. "I'm stepping away for now," he said. "But I'll be watching. Nikki's here to help you breathe again, not to breathe down your necks. Give her what you've been giving this store, your effort, your care, and we'll get this place where it should have been all along." They didn't clap. They didn't cheer. But they stood straighter. 3 days later, Owen sat in his downtown office reviewing the compliance report. It was worse than anticipated. Over a dozen labor violations, improper hourly documentation, and inconsistent food safety logs. He signed off on a full internal audit of all other locations. If it happened here, it could happen elsewhere. By the end of the week, Nikki sent an update. Maribel had started sitting in on interviews for new hires. Fred had taken over training. Kelsey's hours were adjusted to legal limits, and she was now paired with an adult every shift. The fryer was repaired. The walk-in fridge had a new thermometer. And customer satisfaction scores had already ticked up, but the hours were still long. They were still understaffed, so Owen returned. He didn't go undercover this time. He walked in through the front doors in a plain button-down, no beard, no hat, no hidden badge. Customers barely noticed. But the staff did. Nikki was behind the register helping the new cashier when she saw him. "You here for lunch or work?" he smiled. "Both," she raised an eyebrow. "You clear that with Maribel?" I figured I'd ask her now. He found her in the kitchen, mid-sentence with a supplier on the phone. She nodded toward a clipboard, gesturing for him to wait. When she hung up, she didn't miss a beat. "You want to shadow the prep line again?" "Only if you'll have me," he said. She handed him an apron. "Then get your gloves on. We've got 2 big groups coming in." They worked side by side. She didn't treat him like a guest. She corrected his grip on the knife when he diced peppers unevenly. She handed him the sanitation checklist when he forgot to initial it. And when a tray of chicken strips came back undercooked, she didn't blink before throwing them out and starting fresh. "You're running this place like it's yours," Owen said quietly. She kept her eyes on the tray. "Feels like it now." That night after close, Owen pulled Nikki and Maribel into the office. "I'm making it official," he said. "Maribel, you're now general manager. Nikki will support for 2 more weeks, then rotate out." Maribel's face was unreadable at first, then she exhaled slowly and looked at Nikki. "You okay with that?" she asked. Nikki nodded. "Wouldn't have signed off if I wasn't." Owen turned to her. "You built trust fast." "I didn't build it," Nikki said. "It was already here. Carl just ignored it." Owen looked at both of them. "I'll be honest, I thought this location was a loss, but what I saw this week changed that. You've got something rare. A team that still wants to care, even after everything." He paused. "And I won't make the mistake of assuming that's automatic ever again." As he left the store that night, he didn't look back. He didn't need to. The lights were still on. The kitchen was clean. The team was staying late to help Fred fix a loose wheel on the prep cart. Not because they were told to. Because they wanted to. And for the first time in a long time, Owen didn't feel like a CEO looking down at a company. He felt like he was part of it again. 3 weeks after Carl had been removed, the fifth location was steady but still running lean. Shifts were tighter than ideal, and Marable was still covering more ground than a GM should, but things had changed. Not on the surface, not in a marketing sense. In the small, human ways that mattered. Owen returned on a Thursday afternoon, dressed casually in jeans and a button-down. He didn't enter through the back this time. He walked in through the front, waited quietly in line, and paid for the lunch buffet like any other guest. He didn't want anyone adjusting behavior because the CEO was watching. He wanted to feel the rhythm of the place now that the adrenaline of crisis had worn off. He took a plate, moved past the salad bar, and watched a new hire lateral, if he remembered correctly from the weekly report, carefully refill the rotisserie chicken tray. The kid wore a clean apron and moved with deliberate focus. When he noticed Owen watching, he gave a short nod and returned to his task without hesitation. That quiet confidence mattered. Owen settled into a booth near the window. He didn't linger. He ate, noted the cleanliness, the even pace of service, and that guests were being greeted. Not just at the register, on the floor, at tables by name in some cases. That hadn't been happening before. As he got up to leave, Nikki met him at the edge of the dining room. She looked different. Lighter somehow, less burdened. "Didn't think I'd see you until month's end," she said. "I wanted to see it mid-stride, not just at the finish line," Owen replied. She motioned toward the back. "You've got a few minutes." They walked through the swinging doors into the kitchen, which was running with a low hum, controlled, orderly. The prep counter was manned by 2 employees Owen didn't recognize, both focused but relaxed. Marable stood at the dry storage shelf, checking inventory against a clipboard. When she turned, her eyes flicked to Owen, then to Nikki. "I didn't schedule a visit," she said. "I didn't schedule myself," Owen replied. Marable set the clipboard down and leaned against the shelf. "We're still short-handed. I've got 3 interviews tomorrow, but nobody's confirmed yet. If they don't show, I'll be covering hot bar again Saturday." He nodded. "You getting the support you need from the district team?" "They're responsive," she said, "but they're stretched. Everyone's trying to patch holes everywhere." Owen folded his arms. "What's the one thing slowing you down most?" Marable didn't hesitate. "Training time." "We can hire, sure, but getting someone ready to handle a station solo takes longer than people think, especially if they've never worked in food service." Nikki added, "We pulled Fred off prep to run onboarding sessions, but that leaves a gap on the line." Owen looked between them. "I can fix that. We'll set up a dedicated training wage fund, pull from the home office budget. That'll let you overstaff trainees until they're ready. No pressure to rush them." Marable exhaled, not relief, just acknowledgement. "That would help." He turned to Nikki. "You're due to rotate back next week," she nodded. "I was planning to check in monthly. Stay on biweekly for now," he said. "Just until we finish this next hiring cycle." Marable raised an eyebrow. "You think it's going to get harder before it gets easier?" "I think we're still earning back trust," Owen said. "Not just with staff, with customers too. Word spreads when a place feels different, and for that to stick, you need consistency. Not a one-week wonder." Later that day, Owen called a meeting at the regional office, not a conference call. In person. He wanted every GM from the area, 10 stores in total, in the same room. When they arrived, he didn't sit at the head of the table. He stood near the window, arms at his sides, and waited until they settled. "I'm not here with a slide deck," he began. "No graphs, no performance charts, just a reality check." He walked slowly around the room, making eye contact. 3 weeks ago, I watched an employee collapse on shift. Another manager told me to leave him on the floor. That didn't happen in some competitor's kitchen, it happened in ours, because we let pressure and incentives override judgment. No one spoke. "Some of you run great stores," he continued, "but great isn't permanent, it's earned every single day. And it dies the moment you stop paying attention." He turned to the whiteboard behind him and wrote one phrase in bold: "Consequence vs. culture." "I'm done rewarding numbers without looking at how they're reached." From now on, bonuses will include a leadership audit, anonymous staff feedback, retention metrics, and compliance scores. A hand went up. It was Louis, who managed the independent store. What if an employee tries to tank a score out of spite? Then that's on me to investigate, Owen said. But if your culture's solid, one voice won't skew the truth. Another GM, Tasha from the Liberty location, asked, what happens if a manager fails the audit? They don't get the bonus. If they fail twice, they lose the role. He let that hang in the air. Leadership isn't just about food cost and headcount. It's about who you leave standing when the shift ends. If you walk out and everyone's running on fumes, you failed, even if your numbers say otherwise. The room was silent as they left, not tense, just thoughtful. By the end of the following week, the new policy was in motion. Field reps visited stores unannounced. Staff were given direct access to submit anonymous feedback through a third-party platform. And Owen made one more change, something subtle but critical. He required every general manager to work one entry-level shift per quarter. Gloves on. Name tag. No authority used, just hands-on work. It wasn't punishment, it was perspective. Back at the 5th location, things weren't perfect. Owen never expected them to be. But they were honest. Maribel was holding her team to a high standard, but she was there with them. Nikki had rotated out but still checked in through short, direct calls. Fred mentored 2 new hires on the prep line. Kelsey, now 17, was training at the register and had been paired with an assistant manager to prepare for a part-time lead role once she turned 18. And Dante, he returned 2 weeks after his collapse. On light duty, doctor's note in hand. No one rushed him. He worked the dish station first, then moved to salad prep. Quiet, focused, steady. When Owen visited that day, Dante looked him in the eye for the first time and said, "Thanks for not letting that be the end of it." Owen didn't give a speech, he just nodded. The company didn't run on slogans anymore. It ran on people who finally felt seen, and that was enough.